What's going on, Philadelphia? We don't have a match to talk about here today, but we have a soccer club to talk about here today. Welcome on into the special edition of PHLY Union Podcast. I am one of your hosts, JP Zapata, joined as always with the lovely Renee Washington, and we have a special guest here today from across the pitch. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend here, Don. Mike Barrera. What's going on, guy? Mike, first off, it's awesome to finally have you on the show. How you feeling, man?
Good. I appreciate you guys having me. Like I was telling you right before we went on, I'm taking a break from work right now, so this has been a nice change of pace for me today. I appreciate you guys getting me out of the office for a bit. But I'll listen. I'm excited to talk about a really red-hot Union team, so I'm just ready to get into it.
Love it.
Absolutely. And of course, so we also have Renee, who's gearing up for her PHLY Phillies post-game show. Renee, what's going on?
Nothing much. Bye week still means stuff to talk about. So I'm excited for us to have this chance to I feel like everybody needs this week to pause. I know the guys get some time off, much needed for the team and even for us as covering it, just a chance to take a look at what we've seen so far. So excited for the Phillies post game, but also excited for a chance for all of us Union media to have a chance to also breathe.
That's literally the key part about it. It comes at a solid time in the season. Let's get right to it. Obviously, so this is a club right now that is still unbeaten with 3 wins, 4 draws on the season. So it's been a solid year for the U, but of course we have a lot to kind of look at here with the Philadelphia Union. So we got Mike Barrera in here who covers the Union as well. So we're going to get his thoughts of it. But Mike, obviously unbeaten. There was a point, though, we're on a little bit of a winning streak now, obviously, before the Atlanta draw, but we were on a little bit of a winning streak. But the play has definitely improved since the CCC elimination, Mike. For you, what have you seen from this unbeaten side early on here in April?
So I think if you guys watch Jim Curtin's press conferences enough, mainly last year, he uses the word brave a lot. He's like, the team should have been braver at this or been braver in their one-on-ones. I don't think we're hearing that much this season. I feel like the team's confidence, the team's, I guess you want to say bravery, is just a different type of level than last year. And I know these are the same exact players that we've seen from last season too, besides, Marcus Anderson or Semley, but there just seems to be a new confidence with this club, a new energy. They don't seem to give up no matter what the score is or who's in the roster, as we saw in Portland. So I think what excites me the most is just the attitude of this club. They really can go anywhere and win. And I think that, for me, is the biggest optimistic part of this little break, looking back at these last several weeks.
Yeah, I like that because we saw that obviously on display against Atlanta, but we've seen that all season, where I know many of us were talking coming into the season with concerns that this is the same group, as you mentioned, very small adjustments and changes here and there with some young guys and Marcus and Oliver. But overall, the core is still the same. The starting 11 is still the same. And so there was concern with that. But what I think we're seeing is the strength of that is they understand their roles, their identity, who they are as a team. They have the chemistry there. I know that was something Jim spoke about even before the season began of we don't have to do those icebreakers and getting to know each other because the guys know each other so well. So I do feel like we're getting a group that's on the same page, has a great idea of what they want to be at the end of the season. And we've skipped those initial steps that some teams have early on of finding your identity, finding your roles, finding your tactical shape and things like that. So I agree, Mike. I do feel like the bravery has now evolved, that we're consistently seeing them regardless of what's thrown their way, weather, scores, doesn't matter. That they're still bringing the same level, which is very encouraging.
Yeah, we always make the joke, Mike, on our show here about them running it back again, but there's a reason why you run it back, right? Because this is a team that has been proven, and when they're playing as a unit as well, it's very hard to beat. My whole thing is that I know this is one of the best teams in the East. I don't need to watch them play right now to know that. It's when we get to the playoffs and you get to the likes of Cincinnati, the Red Bullets, throw Miami in there as well. What's that going to look like? Or even if you do make the MLS Cup. So I think we all feel good at this point, but I think, kind of a little bit you're wearing the Sixers jersey I see under your Union, kind of with the Sixers. It's you know what the Sixers are, but playoff time, second round time, what's going to show. And that's kind of where I'm at with the U.
I don't blame it. This is also Rashawn Holmes' shirt, throwback.
Wow.
I
love you, Mike.
He was the best. I loved him.
That's sick, man.
I thought you'd appreciate that.
Well, it's ironic.
Love that.
It's ironic because the guy who wears 22 now is a soccer guy in campaign. So I like it, man.
There you go.
There we go.
It all comes around, yeah.
All comes around. Mike, I want to talk about the news that kind of broke yesterday. Matt Rial gets loaned off here. He's going to get a shot here in USL side. I saw a lot of different, theories and thoughts here, whether it was for a roster spot with the Andre Blake situation or whether it's just get a guy who's been here, it feels like forever now, trying to get some playing time. What did you make of that move?
I mean, he really has been here forever, and he's not that old either. He's like his early 20s still, but he just feels like he's been here for his entire life. But so I'm looking back in particular to the Seattle match, the one that got rained out. And if you look back on that lineup, which obviously has to be restarted with the rules of the MLS, he's not in the left back position. Kai Wagner is not available for that game to start. It's Nathan Harry on the left and Olivier was on the right. And I think that's kind of the trend we've been seeing, that if Wagner can't go, or if there's some sort of issue with the formation, Jim's not just going to put Real back there. He's going to change it up to something entirely different. I think the writing's on the wall that he was the odd man out. So I'm happy for him. I really am. He deserves to play, just like Brandon Craig or everybody else who gets loaned out. They deserve minutes,
Yeah, no, absolutely. What did you think, Renee?
Yeah, I couldn't find my unmute button, but I was going to say I was going to say the exact same. No need. Oh, sorry, phone. There's no need to keep him, knowing that ultimately the backs have the flexibility where needed. And as mentioned, it's Nate, Kai, Olivier that are your outside backs. And Nate has proven time and time again he can play on both sides. You have 3 center backs. So if needed, you can also go to a 3-back system where you can have Damian, you can have Jacob and Jack back there. So I do feel like because of the flexibility that those 6 have in those 4 different roles, you don't really need Matt Rial. And much like Brandon Craig, this is another situation. He's not going to play. He's not going to beat these guys out. So to get him a chance to get loaned through 2024 to the USL side and the switchbacks, get some playing time, get some minutes. He's one of the only guys that we're seeing that hasn't found a way into the lineup ever. We're seeing more of Jeremy Raffanello. Chris Donovan's working himself in. We've been seeing everybody but Matt. So I think there's no reason to waste a space with him if you know that you're ultimately not going to ever go to him. If worst case scenario, we've even seen flexibility of maybe it's an ALLCITY back there. Like there's even other options before him. Of course, Leon Flock, if he's ever healthy. So there's a lot of guys in front of him on the depth chart. And I think that's just the reality of knowing your personnel and knowing he's not going to be able, he is still young. He can go play somewhere else. And now maybe you can, as you mentioned, get creative with how you now move the roster moving forward.
Yeah, and besides Flock, which I was going to mention too, he's still coming back pretty soon. You also have Bueno, who really hasn't got a lot of minutes, but he's in the conversation if you're going to put him and Jose together in front of the back line or what you're going to do. There's so many options now, and again, as Renee said, he's just the odd man now, which I feel bad for because he's been around forever, but it is what it is.
With Matt, like he was always a guy that that left leg was nice. I mean, he can cross when he crosses that ball, it's absolutely beautiful. But I always felt like defense was kind of an issue with him, and we try to use him as a shuttler at points of 21. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned, Harriel is someone that Jim trusts. So if you have to rely on a backup, they want to put Nate out there. So yeah, I think that it works well. Going to Colorado Springs isn't a bad thing as well. They've done, obviously they're taking some of our former players. And they're doing a good job there. But with that, though, the other part of it was, creating a roster spot because we're not sure what's going on with Andre Blake, which is kind of concerning as well. But, Renee was, I'll give her credit. She was the first one praising the Zemla. He's been looking solid so far. What have you made of Oliver Zemla in his short time here?
I mean, I think he's been great. He's been exactly what the team needs. When Jacob Glessens was talking about him after one of the recent matches, it's not just confidence in Oliver, but I think the team in front of him has a lot of confidence, which is almost as important, really, as the keeper having that. So it's a new energy when he's in net. I don't think the fans are holding their breath as much as they were last year. And all due respect to Joe, but Oliver just brings a different type of mentality each day to the net. And I'm a little worried about Andre right now. It's 3 injuries so far this year. He's not that old, but he's also not that young either. It's kind of what's his future going to hold if he can't stay healthy?
Yeah, I think for me, Oliver is very different than even going back to Matt Rial, because I wanted to hit on one other thing with him. Someone like Matt Rial, over 6 seasons, he was able to play in 50 different games. We've seen him, as you mentioned, we've seen what he can do. We've seen him where he struggles. And I think when you have these tough decisions, it makes it a lot easier knowing, okay, we've tried him and we've got to move on. Oliver is someone that's on the reverse of that. They tried him early, and there's no reason to move on. He's been great. So you can lock him in as a true backup. And I think knowing that you have a goalkeeper that you can start and play, that's why when you have these roster decisions like Matt Rial versus a Nate Harriel and Olivier Mbaizo and Kai, you're going with the one that can give you 90 minutes. You don't want somebody that you're scared to have. Some games they work well, some games they don't, depending on what the other team looks like, depending on if it's a starting role versus coming off the bench. You need guys that ultimately are competing for a starting spot and can lock that down, especially between the pipes. So knowing that Andre Blake continues to, unfortunately, deal with some injuries, and I know we had talked about it earlier this week, JP, I'm all for shut him down for a couple of weeks, let him rehab, let him rest. There's no rush to bring him back. You have the bye this week. You have next week's game. Obviously, there's the makeup game at the end of the month. Don't even worry about it. I would just honestly roll him through. I guess technically the bye game versus Seattle, he was in net. So he does technically have to start back in net. But either way, he might get pulled quickly for me. I just think he's been steady, and he already showed you that when he was playing in the USL. He was leading the league in shutouts and clean sheets and all types of different goalkeeper stats for a reason. Great size, reads the game well, and has the confidence that he's ready now. So we don't need him to be the everyday starter if Andre's healthy. But now knowing that Andre's dealing with some lingering injuries, shut him down, let Oliver continue to play, and continue to see if you can get Andre back, because I do think Andre is just worn, older, probably mentally tired too. There's not a long off season. You're jumping right back in. He's obviously doing a lot with the Jamaican national team as well. It's just a lot at 33 years old, a lot of mileage that he's got going on there. So I'm encouraged by Oliver, though, and thank goodness it's Oliver and not Joe or Rick. Is the next option. Like, these are decent-ish problems to have, that it's a good Oliver Zemla as your backup and not like, holy crap, who's going to go in net now?
Yeah, exactly. And if you can shut down Andre for, let's say, 3 weeks, for example, but he's healthy come playoff time, it was worth it. It was 100% worth it. Just get to the playoffs. That's all we need.
Absolutely. Mike, let's look at something that has also been looked under a microscope with this club. It's the attack, right? So, like, obviously we were talking about the attack. You're talking Ua, Gaza, Carranza. So a couple of things here. Ua, listen, for the most part, like, he frustrates me, which I want to get your thoughts on. Carranza, the biggest question mark is he going to get sold? And Gazdak, you have to feel good about his kind of bounce back over the past couple weeks. But, this attack will forever be looked under a microscope, because when you think of unit soccer, you think of defense first, and you're looking to see where those goals do come from. But what do you make of this attack, the early parts of this year?
I like that they're all clicking little by little each week. You're not sure if it's going to be Ua or Carranza or Daniel or anybody else in between, especially Ua in particular. I agree his finishing sometimes can be frustrating, but at the same time, the goal that he had against Atlanta, I mean, that's a hard shot to make, especially with his left foot. It's not easy at all. So I do like that he's getting his chances close to net. Yes, I know he might have to finish a few more, but at least they're there. At least it's happening. He's not constantly offside like he was last year. But I know Curtin kind of joked around and flirted with this idea a bit in one of the recent press conferences, but is it entirely out of the question that Carranza can be kept? I don't know. If that's where the money's going to go to, I would be all for it. He's playing unbelievable right now. He's very dangerous. He's scoring, basically every other match, if not every match. I can't imagine this team without him, which is scary to think that he could be gone.
Oh, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. I think ultimately for Julian Carranza, it's going to come down to a couple of factors. Where do you want to be? Kai Wagner, that was one of the things he talked about. Like, he wanted his family here in Philly. He loves it here. Hopefully Julian had that same feeling of like, this is home. This is where me and my fiance want to be and where we want to, grow our family and live. and set roots. But also, if he values the financial side more than that, that could be a concern, because we know there are going to be clubs that can pitch higher amounts and outbid the Philadelphia Union. So I think it's going to come down to, like, what are your values? Do you want to be in a spot where, and I don't know exactly where he would go, but we know what you're going to get here. You're going to get a team that's in the playoffs, that's competing for the top spot in the East, that's, right there on the cusp of you can say with confidence being an MLS Cup winning team, but at least it's in the conversation. And so I think it's going to be a really big test of, like, who is he? What does he want? And where does he want to see himself? Like, does he want to move on? Was the MLS just a stepping stone for him that he hopes he can continue to play, in a European league or something? It really depends on those values. So I'm hoping that with his success, it's him being excited now. I'm scoring goals. We're winning games. We're the last undefeated team in the MLS. Like, everything well the Union does hopefully helps add to his reason to want to stay, and not continues to add to his case for why he's going to get a nice, like, 7-figure offer somewhere else. Because I'm like, it's a double-edged sword. It's either helping him. He's like, it's kind of like when you have that job or that, like, relationship or the car, whatever it is that you're kind of iffy about. Like, you need to have those reminders of, like, this is why you belong here. But these same reminders can also be the ones that are like, you're done. You've done great. Go on somewhere else and continue to score goals and get paid well to do so. So I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie, because he's putting out a really good highlight reel for everybody else as to why they should give him a nice big bag and a great offer.
And then Curtin compares him to Tati Castellanos, like, at least every few months or so. I'm like, Jim, keep it to yourself. We don't have to compare him to anybody else of that name.
Let's lay low.
Exactly.
Publicly about him.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, actually. Oh, JP, you're muted.
All right. Definitely a tough comparison, that is for sure. So my last one for me, Mike, I want to bring up, we didn't talk about it on Monday's show, but the Union unveiled the new Union Yards. It's definitely super cool. Anyone wanted to check it out, definitely check out the next home game. I think they're doing a soft launch on this upcoming Thursday next week. Right across the street from the Sons of Ben lot there. But, like, Mike, it's funny because, like, you and I met you for the first time at a Union tailgate. And it feels like tailgates has changed so much in the last, like, 2 seasons, because obviously now the old lot B is now covered with the practice field and stuff. So,
right.
But, like, for you in particular, like, how do you feel about where we're going with as far as the tailgate atmosphere down at Super Park?
I think so. Like, I've been a Sons of Ben member for 6-7 years now. So for me, I feel comfortable in that type of environment. I know most of the people there. I like the environment they put with the DJ, the games on the side, etc. But if you are a new Union fan and you're not really sure where to tailgate, I can see the Union Yard being much more of, this is like Frankfurt Beer Hall in Philly, or some other brewery that I can think of that is more relaxed, not as, there's a guy on a megaphone screaming at you from the top of the pillar, whatever it is that he yells off of. So I can see why the Union put that in place. And it's also great for if there's a rainy day or if it's really, really hot outside, you go inside. I mean, I'm going to be lying if I say I'm not going to go in there a few times and check it out, because I will. So I think it's a great idea. I know some of the Sons of Ben were a bit concerned by how it kind of competes a little bit with them, but I mean, I think the fans that are more casual will gravitate towards it. And I think it's going to succeed overall.
I think the hard thing is we're such a big tailgating city with our sports that we struggle, because it's the same thing that we saw when the proposal came out about the sports complex in South Philly, having that completely revamped to have bars and restaurants and housing and different things. But as you mentioned, it's great to have a physical spot, a building that you can go into. I mean, we're talking about a brew hall and tailgate zone that's a 7,000 square foot brew hall, 32,500 square foot tailgate zone that allows you to be inside or outside, that gives you a 50-foot full bar serving 20 beers on tap, soft drinks, wine, liquor, and a 4,000 square foot main hall that has, like, just a vibe, just an overall vibe. Big wall, big high ceilings, open garage doors, big screen TVs, 10 big screen TVs. This is exactly what you're going to be able to provide people as even an alternative. Maybe you don't go into the game. Maybe you now go down and tailgate and you watch the game from there.
Yeah.
It just gives you options, and it also gives you revenue for the area. It helps build up the area. I love parking lot tailgates, but I also love being able to have the balance. Like, if you want to be outside in the trunk of your car, you can. But if you also want to go and sit at a bar or watch TV, you also can do that too. Yeah. So I love it. And then what I hate to say right now on the show that I saw this past weekend, but it's the best comparison, is I was just doing a Gotham game up in North Jersey at another arena that I won't name. And they actually have a similar setup where they have a nice like parking lot tailgate, but they also had the dedicated areas with the bars and stuff for fans to be able to hang before the game. And people were there all day, tailgating, drinking, listening to music. They had the live, a stage with a live band. It was a great vibe. And it gave, again, options. We all need options, especially on those rainy days and those hot days or cold days, because that happens too.
I was just about to say, I mean, you're right by the river. That wind picks up and you're freezing. We've all been to games where you're just bundled up like crazy. And do I really want to tailgate? Not so much today. I think now I will inside of a building. So that's great.
No. Fire pits. I forgot about this part. Let me add some more that I was reading. Fire pits, the whole string lights and lounge seating areas, food vendors, food. Maybe you don't want to have, that grilled hot dog or burger from the person's trunk. Maybe you want to instead go and get food from a vendor. I think it's going to allow for all different types of fans, whether you are the tailgater or maybe you're the family or the older, younger, college, whatever. I think it just brings together so many different ages and demographics, to be honest. Plus having union-specific memorabilia there, too.
We only want the dollar dogs, Renee. That's all we want there. Okay? But, no, so,
that's what it comes down to.
You mentioned it, Philadelphia knows how to do a tailgate like that. You see some great tailgates in Lot C, Lot A. That's not the problem. So, what's interesting is, we've evolved so much from, Rico's Lounge, right? We had the Larimer brewery that opened up, in 2019. That was another option for fans. And now you have the Sons of Ben lot and now the Union Hall. So it gives people different options. But I look at it more for the away fans. I know no one wants to think about those away fans. But if you are an away fan coming to Subaru Park, where do you what do you do before the game? I mean, you can, I guess, tailgate. But what if you don't think about that? What if you don't bring drinks? What if you don't bring food? So maybe bringing some other options out there. That's always been part of the plans with that whole redevelopment of that section of Chester, was bringing not only the practice facility, but there was plans of retail, restaurant, bar, that whole scene. So we'll see if that ever comes to fruition and evolves. But I think for right now, the Union Hall, again, is just adding on to the Union being part of the progression of this league as far as entertainment goes. So
plus youth tournaments, when they have youth tournaments and stuff there, you want people to stay. You don't want them to have to leave and go drive 20 minutes. Now they can stay before games, after games, in between games, whatever it is. So I think it only elevates the area, to be honest.
That's a great point.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's going to do it here. Mike, we really, really, really appreciate you coming here, man. It's always a pleasure having you on here. Let the people know where they can find you, though, brother.
Yes, I appreciate you guys having me. And congrats to both of you doing well with this whole Union stuff. It's awesome to see. So you can find me on Twitter, Barrera1323. I occasionally do TikTok, not nearly as much as I probably should. But otherwise, we record once a week on the AAT Sports Network. Our show is Across the Pitch with myself, Jose Nunez, and Dave Miller. Just three guys pretending to talk about something we think we know about. That's basically all it is.
Absolutely. Jose, one of the best, if not the best, as far as journalism here with the Philadelphia Union. So absolutely make sure you guys are showing love and checking their pod out. But as far as our pod goes, Renee and I will be back on our usual spot Monday afternoon, 2 p.m. We'll have some more content as we gear up for a Union match this upcoming week and some other fun stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, for Mike Barrera, for Renee Washington, I go by the name of JP Zapata, and we will see you guys next week. Do ball.